She cheated me of respect, her family cheated me of dignity, so I stayed quiet, built a culinary empire and exposed them all, the night they dined at my restaurant without knowing I owned it. The night I turned their laughter into silence, I learned that dignity doesn't beg, it demands. My name is Jackson Miller, a man in my mid-30s who spent too long swallowing words I should have spit back. I'm not loud or flashy, I'm the guy who listens, who watches, who builds something real while others posture. But that night, God, that night, it changed everything. It wasn't just a moment. It was the pivot of my life, the point where I stopped being invisible and started being undeniable. I can still see it, the glow of chandeliers bouncing off polished wood, the clink of champagne glasses, the smug faces around a table that thought it owned me. I'd been carrying their disrespect like a weight strapped to my chest, but I didn't break. I bent, I endured, and I waited. I never imagined the day I'd silently reclaim my dignity in front of the people who once made me feel invincible, I'd tell myself later. Staring at the ceiling and the quiet after it all went down, that's how it started. Not with a scream, but with a step, a plan. A fire I'd kept buried until the perfect moment. Looking back, I don't feel the sting of their words anymore. The pain's there, sure, etched into me like knife marks on a cutting board, but it's dulled by what came after. Triumph doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's the quiet click of a lock sliding into place, securing what's yours. That night, I didn't just win. I rewrote the story they'd tried to trap me in. Isabel, her family, their whole glittering world. They thought they had me figured out. They didn't see me coming, and when I stood up, when I spoke, when I took back what they'd stolen, I didn't need to raise my voice. The truth did that for me. This is how it happened. This is the night I stopped being their punchline and became the one holding the pen. I met Isabel Grant at a charity fundraiser in San Francisco, one of those nights where the air smelled like money and ambition. The room buzzed, tuxedos, gowns, a string quartet humming in the corner. I was there pouring wine, a favor for the bistro's owner, not exactly a guest. She swept in late, all confidence and sharp edges, her laugh cutting through the chatter like a blade, blonde hair pinned up, green eyes that locked on you like a spotlight. She was impossible to miss. Me? I was the sous chef in a borrowed jacket, quiet, watching the world spin from the sidelines. "Nice pour," she said, sliding a glass off my tray. Her voice had a lilt, playful but testing. I mumbled a thanks, caught off guard by her attention. She asked my name, then didn't wait for an answer before launching into a story about some vineyard she'd visited. I nodded, hooked by her energy. By the end of the night, she'd scribbled her number on a napkin. "Call me, Jackson. You're more interesting than these suits." I believed her. She was dazzling, social elite, the kind of woman who owned every room she walked into. I was a dreamer, hands stained with garlic and thyme, working nights at a stove while sketching restaurant ideas on napkins. At first, she seemed to get it. Over coffee the next week, she leaned in, eyes bright, asking about my farm-to-plans. "That's bold," she said, smiling. "Not many guys like you think that big." It felt like a lifeline, like she saw me when no one else did. But the cracks showed fast. We'd be out with her friends, polished types with trust funds, and she'd toss out lines that landed like punches. "Jackson's my blue-collar project," she said once, laughing over martinis. Her friends smirked. I forced a grin, stomach twisting. "Oh, come on, it's a joke," she'd add, nudging me. But the sting stuck. Another night I mentioned tweaking a recipe and she rolled her eyes. "What's next, a food truck? Stick to what you know." Her tone was light, but it cut deep, support laced with something sour. I told myself it was her humor, that she didn't mean it. She'd pull me close after, all charm again, whispering how I grounded her in this fake world of hers. I bought it because I wanted to, because her confidence made my quiet life feel bigger. But those jabs kept coming, little needles under the skin. At a dinner party, she bragged about her family's Napa estate, then turned to me with a grin. "Jackson's more of a backyard BBQ guy, right?" The table chuckled. I gripped my fork tighter, said nothing. She wasn't wrong about where I came from, working-class roots, no silver spoon, but I wasn't ashamed of it. I'd fought for every step, every skill, while she coasted unprivileged. Still, I stayed. Her allure was a trap. The way she moved, the way she made me feel seen, then unseen in the same breath. I didn't know it then, but that push-pull was the start of something toxic, a slow poison I'd drink for too long. Looking back, I see the red flags waving, her jokes, her casual dismissals. But in those early days, I was too caught up in the glow of her orbit, too hopeful she'd come around. She didn't. And that fundraiser napkin? It wasn't a lifeline. It was the first knot in a rope she'd used to tie me down. The first time I met Isabel's family, I knew I didn't belong. It was a Sunday brunch at their Napa Valley estate, rolling vineyards, a mansion that screamed old money, air thick with the scent of oak and entitlement. Isabel had warned me her parents were traditional, but that didn't prepare me for Vivian and Charles Grant. Vivian, all pearls and pinched smiles, sized me up like a stray dog. Charles, red-faced from wine or arrogance, shook my hand like it was a chore. I'd worn my best shirt, ironed twice, but I still felt like I'd tracked mud onto their pristine world. "Jackson, was it?" Vivian said. Her voice clipped as she waved me to a seat. "What do you do again?" I started to answer. "Sous chef, working my way up," but she cut in. "Oh, cooking. How quaint." Her eyes flicked over me, lingering on my scuffed shoes. "You must tell us how you manage with all that grease." Isabel laughed a little too loud, and I forced a smile, heat creeping up my neck. Charles leaned back, swirling his glass. "A chef, huh? Ever think about something with a future? Real estate, maybe? I could set you up." His tone said I wasn't worth the effort. They didn't ask about me, they dissected me. Vivian mused about how refreshing it was to meet someone unpolished. Her polite way of calling me trash. Charles grilled me on my goals, then snorted when I mentioned my farm-to-trail dream. "Sounds like a hobby. Stick to flipping burgers, son." I bit my tongue, tasting blood, while Isabel squeezed my hand under the table. Like that fixed anything. She didn't defend me, just sipped her mimosa and let them carve me up. Then there was Preston, her younger brother, who rolled in halfway through brunch like he owned the place. Mid-20s AC investor, the kind of guy who name-dropped startups and wore sunglasses indoors. "So you're the boyfriend," he said, smirking as he dropped into a chair. "Heard you're into food. What's that, minimum wage?" He grinned, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. "Pays the bills," I said, steady. He laughed anyway, pulling out his phone to flash a photo of his new Porsche. "This is what real hustle looks like, man. You should try it." The whole meal was a showcase, Preston bragging about his latest deal, Vivian reminiscing about their European summers, Charles pontificating about legacy. I was the odd man out, the quiet guy with calloused hands who didn't fit their script. Isabel chimed in about some gala they'd all attended, then glanced at me. "Jackson wouldn't get it, too many forks." They all chuckled, and I stared at my plate, the eggs cold and congealed. I wanted to say I'd worked doubles to buy those shoes Vivian mocked, that I'd taught myself to cook from nothing, but what was the point? They didn't care. It wasn't just their wealth, it was how they wielded it like a weapon. Vivian's every word dripped with superiority. Charles acted like my existence insulted him. Preston was the worst though, relentless, tossing out barbs like, "Hey, chef, got any ketchup packets for the table?" while checking his stock portfolio. Isabel didn't stop him. She'd smile, nudge me, whisper, "They're just teasing," but it wasn't teasing. It was a wall, and I was on the wrong side. Driving back to the city, I gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened. Isabel rambled about her mom's charm and Preston's energy, oblivious to the pit in my gut. "They like you," she lied, patting my arm. I didn't argue. What could I say? That her family saw me as a stain they'd rather scrub out? That brunch wasn't a meal, it was a warning? I kept quiet, but the divide was clear. They were champagne and caviar, I was sweat and grit. And Isabel? She stood with them, not me. I didn't let their words stop me. I turned them into fuel. Days after that Napa brunch, I was back at the bistro, chopping onions until my eyes burned, plating dishes until my hands cramped. The kitchen was my sanctuary, loud with clanging pans and sizzling oil, a place where I could drown out Vivian's quaint and Preston's minimal wage. I worked overtime most nights, picking up extra shifts to bank cash for my dream, a farm-to-tour restaurant, something real, something mine. The idea had been simmering for years. Fresh ingredients, honest food, a space that didn't cater to snobs but welcomed everyone. I'd sketch layouts on break, scribble recipes in a notebook stained with soy sauce. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. 5 hours a night, sometimes 4, my body running on coffee and stubbornness. I'd stumble home at 2 a.m., crash on a lumpy couch, then drag myself up by 7 to meet suppliers or scout locations. Vacations? Never happened. Friends faded away, texts went unanswered, invites declined. "You're obsessed," my buddy Mike said once, half joking, before he stopped calling. He wasn't wrong. I'd traded a life for a vision, betting everything on a future no one else believed in. My hands grew rougher, my eyes tired, but every late night felt like a step closer. Isabel didn't see it. She'd breeze into my apartment, heels clicking, and barely glance at the papers strewn across my table. "Still playing with your little project," she'd say, smirking, like it was a kid's toy I'd outgrow. I'd try to explain. Local farms, sustainable menus. But she'd cut me off. "Sounds cute, Jackson, but don't quit your day job." Her laugh was sharp, dismissive, and it stung more each time. I'd grit my teeth, nod, keep going. She didn't ask about the circles under my eyes or the way I flinched when my phone buzzed with another bill. To her, it was a hobby, not a lifeline. It got worse when we were out. At some rooftop bar with her crowd, I mentioned meeting a potential investor. She snorted, loud enough to turn heads. An investor? For what, your food shack? A group laughed, her friends all gloss and privilege, sipping $20 cocktails. Oh, Jackson, you're adorable, she added, patting my arm like I was a pet. I stared at my beer, the bottle sweating in my hand, and said nothing. Inside, I was screaming. Adorable? I'd spent months cold-calling farmers, haggling over leases, scraping by on ramen to save every dime. But to her, it was a punchline. I kept it all inside, let the doubts pile up like dirty dishes. Maybe she was right, maybe I was chasing something stupid. But then I'd step into the kitchen, smell the rosemary, feel the weight of a knife, and it steadied me. Food didn't lie. It didn't mock. It was the one thing I could trust, the one place I wasn't small. So I pushed harder. Met a guy named Tom, an old line cook turned small-time investor, who saw what I saw. We'd sit in his cramped office, hashing out numbers over takeout, plotting a spot in Marin County. He didn't care about my blue-collar roots, he cared about the plan. Isabel never knew. I stopped telling her anything real, just let her think I was still the quiet sous chef clocking in and out. Her jabs kept coming. Don't burn the house down with your experiments. But I tuned them out. I wasn't building this for her approval, or her family's. It was for me. For the kid who'd learned to cook on a hot plate because it was all we had. Every shift, every silent night, it was stacking bricks they couldn't knock down. And soon, I'd show them what cute could do. Isabel's words started cutting deeper, and I couldn't dodge them anymore. Your cute side project's taking up a lot of time, huh? She said one night, sprawled on my couch, scrolling her phone while I pored over supplier lists. Her tone was light, mocking, like she was humoring a child. I muttered something about it being more than that, but she didn't look up. Sure, Jackson. Just don't expect me to eat kale from your backyard. She laughed, and it hit me like a slap. My dream, the thing keeping me sane, was a joke to her. I gripped my pen until it creaked, saying nothing. It wasn't a one-off. At a dinner with her friends, I mentioned a breakthrough Tom had secured a loan. She leaned in, all fake sweetness, and said, "Aw, your little cooking thing? That's so precious." The table snickered. Precious. Like I was knitting scarves, not building a future. She'd toss out lines like that constantly. Don't trip over your apron strings. Or stick to chopping, babe. I'd fake a smile, nod, but inside I was unraveling. Her voice stuck in my head, looping when I was alone, whispering I wasn't good enough. I started doubting everything. Nights at the bistro, I'd second-guess every move. Too slow with the knife, too risky with the menu ideas. Was she right? Was I just a fool with a pipe dream? I'd stare at my notebook, pages full of plans, and feel the weight of her dismissal pressing down. Confidence leaked out of me like air from a punctured tire. I'd catch myself in the kitchen mirror, hollow-eyed, slumped shoulders, and wonder if this was all I'd ever be, the guy who tried and failed. Isabel's barbs had wormed in deep, and I couldn't shake them. But food pulled me back. One night, after she'd called my restaurant idea a phase over takeout, I stormed into the bistro's kitchen, grabbed a pan, threw in garlic, thyme, a splash of wine, let the heat and the smell hit me like a reset. I cooked until my hands stopped shaking, until the rhythm of it drowned her out. That's when I knew. I couldn't let her win. This wasn't a phase or a side gig, it was me, the core of who I was. I plated a dish, simple, perfect, and ate it alone at 3 a.m., the silence louder than her taunts. It wasn't just fuel, it was proof I still had something left. She kept pushing, oblivious or uncaring. When are you giving up this fantasy? She asked a week later, flipping her hair. I didn't answer, just kept scribbling numbers. Her eyes narrowed. You're wasting your time, Jackson. Maybe I was to her, but not to me. That moment I felt the shift. I wasn't breaking, I was bending, storing up strength she couldn't touch. The love for what I did, it was the lifeline she... I'd take her hits, let them bruise me, but I wouldn't quit. Not now, not ever. I stopped, waiting for Isabel's approval, and started building. With Tom's loan locked in, I found a spot in Marin County. Old brick, big windows, a view of rolling hills. We gutted it, turned it into something alive, polished wood tables, Edison bulbs, a kitchen that hummed with possibility. I named it Lavender Grove, after the herb that grew wild where I'd once dreamed up this life. It was eco-luxury, sustainable, chic, mine. Every detail mattered. Plates from a local potter, menus on recycled paper, ingredients sourced from farms I'd hand-picked. Opening night was a blur. Full house, clinking glasses, praise I hadn't heard in years. This is special, Tom said, clapping my shoulder. I nodded, chest tight with something like pride. I didn't tell Isabel. Not a word. She'd have laughed. Called it my little experiment, and I wasn't giving her that ammo. Her family didn't know either. Vivian's party, I kept it all locked away. At home I played the same old Jackson. Quiet, crocking in at the bistro, letting her think nothing had changed. She'd ramble about her galas or Preston's latest deal, barely noticing my silence. "You're so predictable," she said once, smirking over wine. I shrugged, hiding the truth. I'd already won. Keeping it secret wasn't easy. I'd dodge her questions. "Late shift, huh?" I'd mutter, when I was really at Lavender Grove, tweaking the menu or training staff. She'd roll her eyes, uninterested, and I'd let her. The restaurant was thriving. Reviews trickled in, word spread, tables booked weeks out. I'd walk the floor, watch people savor my food and feel the weight lift. But with her, I stayed small. At a dinner party, she bragged about some winery she'd visited, then turned to me. "Jackson's still slaving away in that kitchen, right?" Her friends chuckle. "Yeah," I said, flat-sminding while my mind flashed to the packed house I'd left an hour ago. The condescension didn't stop. Hurst cornered me at a family dinner, puffing his cigar. "Still flipping burgers, son?" I nodded, jaw tight, thinking of the critic who'd called Lavender Grove a revelation that week. Vivian chimed in, "Such a simple life," her smile dripping pity. Preston just grinned, flashing his Rolex. "Keep at it, chef." I took it all, absorbing it all, braced to hold. Isabel was the worst, though. "Don't burn out chasing your dreams," she'd say, half laughing, like I was a kid with a lemonade stand. I'd stare past her, counting the days. Lavender Grove wasn't just a restaurant, it was my backbone, proof I wasn't the nobody they saw. I'd built it brick by brick, funded by sweat and late nights, not their handouts. Tom believed in me. The staff did too. Lena, my manager, ran the place like it was hers. We'd sit after close, splitting a bottle of wine, toasting to what we'd made. "You're a quiet storm, Jackson," she said once. I liked that. Quiet, yeah, but unstoppable. Hiding it built the tension I needed. Every snide remark from Isabel, every sneer from her family sharpened the edge. I wasn't just enduring, I was waiting. They thought they knew me, thought I'd stay small forever. But Lavender Grove was real, growing, a secret weapon I held close. Soon they'd see it. Soon they'd choke on their own words. I kept my head down, let them underestimate me, and poured everything into the one thing they couldn't touch. Preston dropped the news like a king tossing scraps. We were at some overpriced steakhouse, Isabel's family plus me, the outsider in a borrowed tie, when he clinked his glass and stood. "Big announcement," he said, grinning wide enough to show his veneers. "Madison and I are engaged, parties next month. Biggest bash Marin's ever seen." Madison, his model influencer fiancé, beamed beside him, all cheekbones and Instagram glow. The table erupted. Charles slapped his back. Vivian cooed about perfect timing. I clapped once, polite, while Preston soaked it up like he'd invented love. Isabel lit up, practically bouncing. "Where's it at?" she asked, leaning in. Preston smirked, savoring the pause. "This upscale spot in Marin. Lavender Grove. Booked the whole place. Classy, exclusive, perfect for us." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Lavender Grove. My Lavender Grove. The name hit me like a punch. But I kept my face blank, chewing slow. Isabel gushed, "Oh my God, I've heard it's amazing, total vibe." "You've outdone yourself, Pres." She didn't look at me. Didn't notice my grip tightening on the napkin. They kept talking, Preston bragging about the cost, Vivian plotting guest lists, Charles grumbling about parking. I tuned out, mind racing. Preston had booked my restaurant, my secret, my triumph, for his night. He didn't know I owned it, none of them did. I'd kept it airtight, letting them think I was still slinging hash at the bistro. Now here they were, planning their victory lap on my turf, oblivious. A laugh almost slipped out, but I swallowed it, sipping water instead. Isabel turned to me, all smug. "Try to keep up at the party, Jackson. It's not your usual dive bar scene." Her tone was teasing, but the jab landed. Charles chuckled. "Yeah, don't bring the apron." Preston winked. "Maybe they'll let you bust tables." The table laughed, and I forced a thin smile, pulse hammering. They had no idea. I pictured it. Them walking in, strutting past my bar, my kitchen, my name etched into every detail. The twist was too perfect. I didn't say a word. Let them plan, let them preen. Isabel raved about the vibe she'd never seen. Preston boasted about dropping cash he didn't earn. I nodded along, playing the part. Why, harmless Jackson. Inside, I was electric. This wasn't just a party. It was a stage, and I'd built it. They'd handed me the moment without knowing, a gift wrapped in their own arrogance. I finished my steak, said little, and left the table with one thought. They were walking into my world, and I'd be ready. The night arrived, and Lavender Grove shimmered under a marin sky, string lights twinkling, air thick with lavender and roasted garlic. Guests poured in, dazzled by the vibe, sleek tables, fresh herbs in clay pots, a bar glowing with artisanal bottles. I'd built this, every inch. But I walked in behind Behale like a shadow, hands in pockets, letting her strut ahead. She swept through the door, head high, oblivious. "This place is unreal," she said, spinning to take it in. "Preston nailed it." I nodded, silent, watching her admire what I'd bled for. We hit the main table, her family already holding court. Vivian, draped in silk, waved a hand at the decor. "Charming in a rustic way." Charles grunted. "Overpriced, but it'll do." Preston, arm around Madison, grinned like he'd invented the place. "Told you, top tier, cost a fortune." Guests milled around, tech bros, influencers, Napa and elite. "Try not to embarrass me tonight, okay?" Her whisper was sharp, a warning. I gave a tight nod, stomach churning. The jab started fast. Vivian peered at me over her glass. "Jackson, you must feel out of place here. No grease stains tonight?" She smiled, thin and cruel. Charles jumped in. "Yeah, son, you're in the big leagues now. Don't spill anything." Laughter rippled. I clenched my jaw, said nothing. Preston leaned back, smirking. "Hey, chef, maybe you can pitch in if the kitchen's short." Madison giggled, and Isabel nudged me, grinning. "He's kidding, relax." But her eyes said she loved it. It didn't stop. A tech guy across the table, some friend of Preston's, squinted at me. "You're the tag-along, right? What do you even do?" Isabel answered for me, all breezy. "Oh, he's into cooking, his little passion project." The guy snorted. "Passion project? Cute, like a bake sale?" My hands balled into fists under the cloth, nails digging into palms. Vivian chimed in. "At least he's consistent. Simple dreams for a simple man." Charles toasted to that. "To Mr. Passion Project, may he find a real job someday." I took it, every word, every laugh. Isabel's elbow brushed mine, casual, like she wasn't part of the pile-on. Preston kept going, louder now. "Seriously, man, you're out of your depth. Stick to flipping burgers. This is our world." Guests nearby glanced over, smirking, phones out. I caught a whisper, "Who's the loser with them?" And my chest tightened. Humiliation burned, hot and familiar, but I didn't flinch. I sipped my water, slow, letting it cool the rage. They thought they had me pinned, same as always. The room buzzed. Plates clattered out, my dishes, my recipes, seared scallops, heirloom salads, lamb with rosemary I'd sourced myself. Guests raved, "This is insane, best I've ever had." And I watched, quiet, as their forks moved. Isabel ate too, moaning about the flavors. Clueless it was mine. "Preston, you picked a gem," she said. He puffed up. "Only the best for us." I almost laughed, almost. Instead, I sat there, the tag along, letting them gorge on my work while they tore me down. The mockery peaked when Preston stood, glass raised. "To Madison, and to this night. Proof money can buy taste." Cheers erupted. He glanced at me, smirking. "Don't worry, Jackson, we'll tip you later." The table lost it. Vivian cackling, Charles wheezing, Isabel hiding a grin behind her hand. I stared at my plate, the half-eaten food I'd perfected, and felt the weight of their voices pressing in. It was suffocating, a public shredding, but I didn't break. I'd built this night, every beam, every bite, and they didn't know. Not yet. I caught Lena's eye across the room, my manager moving smooth through the chaos. She nodded, subtle, and I felt the shift. The air thickened, electric. They could laugh, they could cut, but I wasn't their punching bag anymore. I pushed my chair back, stood, and walked away. Calm, deliberate, leaving their jeers behind. The setup was done. It was time. I stepped away from the table, their laughter fading into the hum of the room. My pulse thumped, steady as I crossed Lavender Grove. My floors, my lights, my world. Guests swirled around me, oblivious, sipping drinks I'd chosen, eating food I'd crafted. I caught Lena near the bar, her dark hair pulled back, eyes sharp. She'd been with me since day one, running this place like a machine. I leaned in, voice low. "It's time. Get them ready for the announcement." She didn't blink, just nodded, a flicker of a smile. "You sure?" she asked. "Never been surer," I said. She turned, slipping into the crowd, and I felt the weight shift. I took a breath, letting it settle. The night had clawed at me. Vivian's barbs, Preston's smirks, Isabel's casual betrayal. But I wasn't bleeding anymore. I was stealing. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. They'd mocked me on my own ground, gorged on my work while calling me nothing. Now they'd see. I glanced back at the table. Preston mid-fox, Isabel laughing, Charles red-faced and smug. They didn't notice me gone. Good. Let them bask a little longer. I moved to the edge of the room, near the open kitchen where my staff hustled, pans clanging, steam rising. The smells hit me, thyme, garlic, the life I'd built. It steadied me, like always. I adjusted my jacket, smoothed a wrinkle, and walked back, calm, deliberate. No rush, no I slid into my seat like nothing had changed, their voices washing over me. "Where'd you run off to?" Isabel asked, smirking. "Bathroom," I lied, sipping my water. She shrugged, uninterested, and turned back to Madison's ring story. Preston was still peacocking, tossing out lines about taste and class, the table eating it up. Vivian murmured something about standards, her eyes skipping over me. Charles grunted approval. I let it roll off, white noise now. My hands rested on the table, steady, while inside I buzzed. Lena was out there, setting it up, and I could feel the moment closing in. I didn't fidget, didn't smirk. Let them play they'd won. A server passed, tray loaded with my desserts. Lavender panna cotta, my recipe. Guests nearby gasped, "This is unreal," and I watched, silent, as the table dug in. Isabel moaned, "God, this is good," oblivious. Preston nodded, "Worth every penny." I almost smiled. Almost. Instead, I leaned back, eyes on the room, waiting. Lena caught my gaze again, quick, subtle. And I gave the faintest nod. It was locked in. The air tightened, a wire about to snap. They had no idea what was coming, and I was ready to pull the pin. The room hummed, glasses clinking, voices overlapping, until Lena's voice cut through it all. She stood at the center, mic in hand, her presence steady as the chatter died. "Good evening, everyone," she said, clear and firm. "Thank you for joining us at Lavender Grove tonight. We're thrilled to host Preston and Madison's engagement party." Polite applause rippled. Preston puffed up, nodding like he'd earned it. Lena paused, eyes scanning the crowd, then landed on me. "But before we go on, I'd like you all to recognize the visionary behind this place, the owner. Please welcome Jackson Miller." A beat of silence hit, heavy and sharp. I stood, slow, letting it sink in. The table froze, forked midair, mouth open. Isabel's head snapped toward me, eyes wide, her glass trembling. Preston's smirk vanished, jaw slack like I'd punched him. Vivian's hand clutched her pearls. Charles blinked, red face paling. I stepped forward, calm, and took the mic from Lena. The room tilted, guests whispering, craning necks, phones lit. I felt every stare, but I didn't waver. "Thanks, Lena," I said, voice even. "And thanks to all of you for being here. Lavender Grove's been a dream of mine for years, built from scratch, every detail, every dish. I didn't do it for applause or handouts. I did it because I had to." I glanced at the table, locking eyes with Isabel. Some people thought it was a cute side project. A hobby. A waste of time. Nothing came out. I let them think that. Kept it quiet while I worked. Nights, weekends, years. And now you're here, eating my food, sitting in my place. The whispers grew, sharp gasps, murmurs of, "Wait, him?" Phones angled up, recording. Preston stared, dumbfounded, hands flat on the table like he'd forgotten how to move. Vivian's mouth tightened, a thin line of disbelief. Charles coughed, shifting in his seat. I kept going. "This isn't just a restaurant. It's proof you don't need old money or a big mouth to make something real." A few claps broke out, tentative, then louder. I didn't smile, just nodded, letting the room feel it. Isabel's voice cracked, through, small, shaky. "Jackson, you own this?" She sounded lost, like she'd tripped into a script she didn't know. I met her gaze, unflinching. "Yeah," surprise. Her hands dropped to her lap, eyes darting to her family, then away. Preston muttered, "No way," shaking his head. But the truth was sinking in. He'd bragged about booking my spot, my win. The guests leaned in, buzzing, "He's the owner?" The air crackling with shock. Lena stepped up, smooth as ever. "Let's give Jackson another round. He's the heart of this place." The applause swelled, real now, rolling over the room. I handed her the mic, stepped back and watched it land. Vivian whispered something to Charles, frantic. He just stared at his plate. Preston's face twisted, half rage, half humiliation as Madison tugged his arm, confused. Isabel wouldn't look at me, her napkin twisted in her fists. The table was a tableau of stunned silence, their smugness shattered. The crowd shifted, some clapped louder, others filmed, whispers turning to chatter. "That's the guy they were mocking. Holy shit, he owns it?" I stood there, still, letting it wash over me. No gloating, no shouting, just the weight of their eyes, the truth I'd dropped like a stone. They'd walked in thinking they owned the night. Now they knew. It was mine. Always had been. The room buzzed, alive with the flip, and I felt it. Freedom, sharp and clean, cutting through years of their noise. I stepped back to the table, the mic still warm in Lena's hands, the room's applause fading into a charged hum. Faces turned, guests, staff, all watching. I looked at Isabel, Preston, Vivian, Charles, their stunned silence louder than their earlier laughs. I didn't rush. I pulled my chair out, sat and leaned forward, voice low but clear. "I've got something to say." They stared, caught, like deer in headlights. The air tightened, and I let it. This journey wasn't easy, I started, eyes moving from one to the next. Years of work, late nights, no sleep, every dollar I had. I built Lavender Grove because I believed in it, but I did it under your cute project, your tag-along, your stick-to-flipping burgers. Isabel flinched, but he didn't speak. I took it, every jab, every laugh, not because I'm weak, because I knew this day was coming. Vivian shifted, her pearls clicking faintly. Jackson, we didn't mean… I cut her off, calm but firm. You did. You all did. You made me feel invisible, like I was nothing. And I let you for too long. I paused, letting it land. This table taught me something. Silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's suffocation. I'm done choking on it. Preston's fists balled under the table. Isabel's eyes glistened, but I didn't soften. I leaned back, voice steady. I built this place for people who respect it. The food, the work, each other. That's the rule here. No exceptions. I glanced at Lena, who nodded from the sideline, then back at them. So, here's the deal. Anyone who can't follow that policy, anyone who thinks it's okay to tear someone down, they don't belong. You're free to leave. A line drawn in stone. The table went still. Guests nearby hushed, sensing the shift. Preston scoffed, loud and forced. You're kicking us out? At my party? His voice cracked, bravado slipping. I met his glare. It's my restaurant, my call. You've got two choices. Sit there and behave, or go. Vivian gasped. This is absurd, Charles growled. Isabel reached for my arm, voice trembling. Jackson, please, let's talk. I pulled back, cold. We're past talking. You picked your side every time they laughed. Her hand dropped, face crumpling. Lena stepped up, flanked by two staffers. Big guys, quiet but firm. Folks, if you're not staying respectfully, we'll escort you out, she said, all business. The room watched, phones up, recording the unwrap. Preston shoved his chair back, standing. This is bullshit. You're a nobody pulling a stunt. Madison tugged his sleeve, whispering, Prez. Stop, but he shook her off. Vivian stood too, clutching her purse. We won't be humiliated by this cook. Charles lumbered up, muttering, ungrateful punk. Isabel stayed seated, head down, tears streaking her makeup. I didn't move, just watched as Lena gestured, and the staff closed in. They shuffled out, Preston cursing under his breath, Vivian hissing about standards, Charles glaring daggers. Isabel trailed last, slow, glancing back once, pleading, lost. I didn't budge. The door swung shut behind them and the room exhaled. A guest clapped, then another, until applause rolled through, sharp rule cutting the tension. I stood, nodding to the crowd. Enjoy your night, I said, simple, and walked off, their cheers at my back. It wasn't loud or messy, just clean, final. I'd taken it back. Not just the night, but me. Years of their weight lifted, replaced by something solid, control. They'd walked in kings, they left fools. And I stood taller, not because I'd shouted, but because I'd spoken. Clear, quiet, mine. The table was empty now, their plates half-eaten, their reign over. I'd drawn the line, and they'd crossed it for the last time. The door clicked shut behind Isabel's family, and the room ignited. Guests clapped louder, a wave crashing over their empty seats. Preston's toppled chair, Vivian's abandoned shawl, Charles's half-drunk scotch. Lena waved off the staffers, smirking as she caught my eye. Handled, she mouthed. I nodded, chest still tight from the adrenaline, and turned to the crowd. Faces lit up, some shocked, some grinning, all buzzing. A woman near the bar shouted, "Hell yeah," and raised her glass. Others followed, toasting me, the air crackling with a shift no one saw coming. It started fast, phones stayed up, thumbs flying, clicks of my speech, their exit already hitting X and Instagram. A guy in a blazer leaned over his table, narrating to his date. They were trashing him all night, then bam. He owns the place. She laughed, filming the chaos. Another table replayed Preston's bullshit outburst, cackling as it looped. The applause tapered, but the energy didn't stop. A figure in a windcheck suit pulled beside me. "A respect, man," a woman added too hard. "Respect, man," a woman added, snapping a selfie with me in the frame. I smiled, brief, and kept moving. The family didn't vanish quietly. Outside, Preston paced the lot, yelling into his phone. Madison trailing, heels clicking, trying to calm him. Vivian stood by their car, ranting to Charles about that insolent boy, her voice shrill against the night. Isabel lingered near the entrance, mascara streaking, staring through the glass like she could will it back. Guests streamed out, some pointing, others filming. "That's them," a kid hissed, zooming in. Preston spun, snarling, "Mind your business," but it only fueled the crowd, laughter, more clips, their disgrace live for all to see. Social media blew up by midnight. Underdog chef owned snobs at his own restaurant trended on X, racking up thousands of likes. My speech? silence isn't always strength, got chopped into sound bites, shared with fire emojis. Preston turned meme fodder fast. When you book the place but get booted, paired with his red-faced exit captioned over a crying Jordan face. Isabel caught heat too. Girl, you fumbled a king. As screenshots of her stunned look circled, comments piled on. Family of clowns, justice served hot. Lavender Grove's account spiked. Follows, bookings, all surging as the story spread. Inside, the party rolled on, louder, freer, like I'd uncorked it. Guests toasted to Jackson, digging into my food with new reverence. This lamb? A woman said, awed, like it tasted better now. Lena worked the room, grinning, fielding praise. He's the real deal, she told a couple, and they nodded, filming her too. I stayed back, near the kitchen, watching it unfold, my staff hustling, my vision alive. The humiliation I'd swallowed for years flicked, their smugness now a punchline echoing online. Preston's biggest bash became my night. His engagement faded. Madison's ring pics drowned by Lavender Grove guy posts. Isabel's family shrank in the spotlight. Vivian's standards mocked. Charles's bluster a joke. They'd strutted in Kings. They left, trending for all the wrong reasons. I didn't gloat, just stood there, letting the tide turn. A server passed, whispering, "Boss, you're viral." I shrugged, but inside it landed. By 1 a.m. the lot was empty, their car long gone. Guests lingered, buzzing, some begging me to spill the tea. I waved them off, let the clip speak. The fallout wasn't loud screams or fists. It was this. Their empire cracked, my name rising, all from a quiet stand. I'd taken the night, and they'd lost more than a party. They'd lost the script. I stood in my office after the last guest left, the hum of Lavender Grove fading to stillness. The desk was cluttered, a Fratiz de hum, a half-empty coffee mug. But my eyes locked on a framed photo. Opening night, me and the staff, grinning, exhausted, alive. That was months ago, before the chaos, before tonight rewrote everything. I sank into the chair, the leather creaking, and let it hit me. The weight of their voices. Vivian's snide cranked, Preston's not buried, not muted. Gone. I'd carved it out, left it bleeding on the floor with their pride. Isabel texted at 2 a.m. Can we talk? I didn't know. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Didn't know? She'd known every jab, every laugh, and stood by it. I typed back, short. No, we're done. Sent. Blocked her number. No anger, no drama, just a door shut. I'd loved her once, or thought I had, her spark, her pull, but it was a leash, not a lifeline. Cutting it wasn't hard. It was air rushing in after years underwater. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, and felt a knot in my chest unravel. Freedom crept in slow, then all at once. I didn't need her validation, her family's nods, their world. I'd built mine, brick, sweat, time-scented nights, and it stood taller than their crumbling towers. The photo caught my eye again. Lena raising a glass, Tom laughing, me in the middle, quiet but sure. That was enough. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Not to them, not to myself. The mirror in the corner showed a man I recognized again. Tired eyes, yes, but steady, unbowed. I walked the empty floor, shoes tapping on wood I'd sanded myself. The tables were cleared, chairs stacked, but the place breathed my place. I ran a hand over the bar, smooth and cool, and thought of the kid I'd been, broke, hungry, teaching myself to cook on a busted stove. He'd made it here, not by shouting, but by doing. Tonight wasn't just a win over them, it was a promise kept to him. I locked up, stepped into the crisp marin air and felt light, like I could finally stand straight. Sleep came easy that night, no dreams of their voices, no doubts clawing in. I woke to sunlight, not dread. First time in years. The phone buzzed with messages. Lena's, "You're a legend," Tom's, "Proud of you," staff cheering the viral spike. I smiled, small, and set it down. I didn't need the noise now. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and watched the world roll by. Mine again, not theirs. Isabel faded fast. No calls, no pleas, just silence, the kind I controlled. Her family's fallout played out online, but I didn't check. I'd seen enough. Lavender Grove was my focus. Tables full, staff humming, food that told my story. I'd carried their toxicity too long, let it seep into my bones. Now it was out, purged, and I was whole. Not loud, not flashy, just free. I thought of that first night again, the photo, the start. It wasn't about them, it never had been. It was about this, a quiet man, a quiet win, a life reclaimed. I sipped my coffee, warm and bitter, and let the past dissolve. I'd fought for me, and I'd won. Lavender Grove didn't just survive that night, it thrived. Word of the showdown spread like wildfire, and the tables filled faster than we could seat them. Reservations stretched months out, locals and tourists alike clamoring for a taste of the underdog's food. Critics came too. San Francisco Chronicle called it a triumph of flavor and grit. Eater dubbed me the chef who flipped the script. I didn't chase the hype, just kept the kitchen running. Scallops seared crisp, salads bright with heirloom tomatoes, lamb that melted like a memory. Revenue doubled in 6 months, and I plowed it back in, hired more staff, sourced rarer ingredients, made it better. 2 years later, I opened a second location in Sonoma. Smaller, cozier, tucked among vineyards. Same ethos, fresh, honest, mine. The third followed in Oakland, urban and bold, with a rooftop garden I tended myself. Each spot carried Lavender Grove's soul, sustainable, welcoming, no pretension. Customers told me they felt it. It isn't just food, it's a story. I'd nod, quiet, but it landed. The kid who'd cooked on a hot plate now had 3 packed houses, a staff of 50, and a name people knew. I didn't flaunt it, just kept building. The personal stuff settled too. I started dating again, slow at first, coffee here, a walk there. Then I met Claire. She was a farmer's daughter, all freckles and no nonsense, who supplied my arugula and laughed at my bad jokes. First date, she asked about the viral night, eyes wide. "That was you?" I shrugged. "Yeah, me." She grinned. "Gutsy." I liked that, no games, no jabs, just real. We'd sit on her porch after deliveries, splitting a beer, talking soil and spices. She saw me, Jackson, not the story, and that was enough. Last month, she moved in, her boots by my door, her voice in my mornings. It fit. Isabel's world faded to static. I heard Scrap's Preston startup tanked. Vivian and Charles retreated to Napa. Isabel bounced between influencers chasing relevance. Their names popped up online sometimes, tied to that night, but I didn't look. They were ghosts now, irrelevant. Lavender Grove outshone their legacy, my plates on tables, my vision in headlines. I'd turned their scorn into something solid, something they couldn't touch. People started sharing the story wider. Motivational threads on X, podcasts about self-worth through silence. A TEDx invite came, but I passed. Didn't need a stage to say it. The lesson was in the doing. I'd been invisible, then undeniable, not by yelling but by standing firm. Chefs wrote me, kids too, you made me believe I could. I'd write back, simple, keep going. That was the legacy, not their downfall, but this quiet push forward. I'd walk the original Grove some nights, after close, tracing the grain of the bar I'd sanded. It wasn't perfect. Scratches from years, a dent from a dropped crate, but it was mine. Revenue hit, 7 figures last quarter. I gave the staff bonuses. Bought Claire a truck for her farm runs. Life wasn't loud, grilling with her, sketching new menus, watching fog roll over Marin, but it was full. I'd catch myself smiling, unprompted, at the stove or in the garden, and know I'd made it. The past didn't haunt me anymore. That night, their laughs, her dismissal, it was fuel, burned out now. I'd built more than a business, a peace, a home, a name that stood on its own. Claire said it once, half asleep. "You're a good man, Jackson." I believed her. The hustle paid off, not just in numbers but in this. A life I owned, whole and steady, rooted deep. I stood on Lavender Grove's porch, the night quiet, stars piercing the Marin sky. Years of their noise, mockery, doubt, had faded to this. A life I'd claimed, stepped by silent step. Isabel, her family, their world, they'd tried to bury me in their disdain, but I'd turned it into ground to stand on. Now, with Claire's hand in mine, the restaurant humming behind us, I knew the truth. Sometimes, the loudest statement you can make is done not with noise, but by owning the very silence they tried to bury you in. I smiled, free, and let the stillness speak.